Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 89 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid. In today's episode, I'm talking to Timna from Maryland, USA. Timna has recently done the 8-week room-by-room Declutter Bootcamp. And she's done an amazing job with the bootcamp. And she's been loving the motivation and support from other members that she's now decided to become a member for a year of the Declutter Hub membership. So Leslie and I thought it would be a great idea to chat to Timna and find out more about her decluttering journey. So welcome, Timna.
Hello.
Nice
to be here.
We're so happy you're here. So thank you so much. Now, we had a chat last week, didn't we? And because we wanted to see how you were doing. And Leslie and I were like, oh my gosh, you're such an inspiration. We need to ask you to come on the podcast because we want to inspire others. And I'm delighted that you're here. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for asking me. I hope that I can help somebody else too.
I'm sure you will. I mean, we had such a lovely chat. And what really stood out for me when we were talking on Friday, you said, you know what, Ingrid, I just have a bit too much stuff. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that is so nice, because some people say, okay, it's my paperwork, or it's this or that, or the other. And you said, no, I just have a bit too much stuff. And I thought, that's very interesting. And thank you for being brave enough to share this with our listeners, because I think you can really, really help people with your story. So first question then is, how is clutter affecting you in your home, and kind of how do you feel about it? How did this all get started?
Well, I think it's an accumulation over many years. It just feels stressful. It increases anxiety. I get very frustrated because I feel like it shouldn't be that way. And I get lost in, I guess I'm the only person that's like this. Why do I have so much stuff? Why can't I control it? So frustrated, defeated sometimes.
We hear a lot of people say to us, I feel really overwhelmed. Is that a good expression?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
overwhelmed.
And I know you say it's been like this for many years. Have you got an idea? Did it gradually build up, or was there a lot of people say to us that something happened with suddenly kind of the amount of stuff just tripled for some reason. Has it been gradually with you?
I feel like it probably got worse. We moved into a house 25 years ago. That gives you more space to fill. And my husband really doesn't like to get rid of things either. We're both kind of sentimental, and he sees the use in everything. So he likes to keep things because they're useful. I'm more sentimental, so I keep things because I feel sentimental. I'm also a scrapbooker. So after I had kids, my first son is 22, my oldest son is 22, I just started keeping everything. I mean, I have cards, I have toys, I still have so much stuff from their youth that I've not been able to part with. School things, they would bring school stuff home, so it just built, I think, from that point. It got worse after kids, I'd say, and has just continued to grow.
Yeah. Because if I read you, it's not like you have a hoarded house that you can't move in, is it? You have a normal house, you have a nice spacious house. We all are jealous because we know that in America, all the houses are like triple the size of the houses here in the UK. I mean, we live in tiny little boxes compared to you guys, but all that space you can fill up as well, can't you?
Yeah. I've gotten used to not having clear spaces. I fill them up. Now this experience has changed that somewhat, and I do have some clear spaces that I don't feel like filling up, even though I have things that have been there for a long time. So I have some things put away that just have never come back. Even after Christmas, I had pictures out and things before, and switched out and had Christmas, and then when I cleaned out the Christmas, because I started listening to you on January, I kind of just have been enjoying not having a lot of stuff back out, but I'm working on that.
Yeah.
Getting a few of those things back out.
What if it's very interesting. Let me come back to the podcast in January in a minute, but just to kind of get a picture. So what kind of clutter do you have? I mean, I know you say it's just too much stuff. Is it anything in particular? I mean, you mentioned scrapbooking already, but is it clothes or toys or books or paperwork?
Kind of everything. I paperwork is an issue as well. I have lots of papers. We still have a lot of toys, and I'm trying to get my kids to go through those because they're older. And even if they want to save them, we need to pack them up and put them somewhere. And I have a lot of memorabilia. I have a lot of things, and that even includes maybe not just paper and pictures and cards. I mean, there's a lot of things that are actual things that were relatives and that I just don't know what to do with, don't want to get rid of. I know they say take a picture. Well, then I have more pictures, but it's still hard to get rid of a lot of those things. And my husband, he has tons of books. I've been able to release some books lately, but he's not so good with that. So, books are another big one that we have lots of. So really it's everything. I can't pinpoint one thing that I have too much of.
When we were chatting, you said some very interesting things because the clutter comes from different places in your home. You kind of already said, yeah, it's my relatives, it's my husband's grandfather's chair. So where does your stuff come from?
Well, my mother doesn't have a lot of clutter, but I think that's because she tries to give me everything that she thinks I should care about. She'll come in and tell me, how do you have all this stuff? Why do you have so much stuff? Well, she'll bring me a bag of things and say, well, this was your aunt's. Well, this was this was your grandmother's. This was, and then I think it takes it off of her to have to keep it. But then I get stuck with it. And then I feel like I can't get rid of it. So that's a big one. My husband's father kind of does the same thing. My husband and his family, the men in the family are the firstborn men are FHS, and that's their monogram. And his grandfather had a lot of monogrammed things. And so his father gives them all to us because my husband is FH and my oldest son is FH. So we end up with lots of that stuff. Well, some of it's, matchbooks and napkins and, things that normally wouldn't mean that much and you could get rid of them, but, it just takes up space. And that's a big one too.
Yeah.
And other family heirlooms and stuff, and whether or not they're worth anything, but just the fact that they belong to other people in the family, it's tough to get rid of.
And do you think you've got two sons, I believe? How do you feel they are with stuff? Are they both quite sentimental as well? Or is one really sentimental and the other one not? Because sometimes you see a divide in the children, or are both of them quite like, oh, it come in handy one day, let's keep it?
They both kind of keep too much stuff. I was trying to go through toys with them and they had a story for everything, even a dirty little truck. I said, okay, this one goes, oh no, we went to the beach and I lost it. And the next day we came back and found it in the same spot and it was buried in the sand. Well, there was a story for everything I picked up. So I don't know what to do with that. I'm trying to get them to understand we need to really clear out some things, and they can't keep 20 totes full of old trucks and, erector set and things that even some of the erector sets, when my kids were little, my father-in-law and his wife and my mother-in-law, they like to go to sales and things. So they would buy tons of old toys and erector sets and all these things. And whether my kids even played with them or not, I still have a lot of that stuff, and my kids are like, well, no, they want to keep it for their kids. And we all know that that's, the kids get too much stuff. They'll get all the new stuff, and that's what they'll want to play with.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so
It's
that's,
it's definitely a process, isn't it? It's those hard categories that really can bring a decluttering project to a halt, isn't it?
yes,
And
because I've tried the toy route a couple times with my boys, and I just end up having to walk away.
yeah,
And we don't get anywhere.
yeah,
It stays all right there. So
yeah.
my stuff I'm getting way better with. I'm having success, but I don't know about the rest. My husband's doing a lot outside, and we can talk about that at some point. But the toys are definitely a big issue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's probably one of the last things on the list of things that needs to be handled by several family members need to be involved in that. But I think what we see a lot, and that what I've seen a lot as a professional organizer, is that when I work with clients, they say, I want to start there. And I'm like, is that the easiest or the hardest? Oh no, that's the hardest. I mean, but you can't start there. And we're going to talk about some more about your room of doom, aren't we, in a minute?
Mhm.
Because that's when that same sentiment comes back. You have to start with easier areas first, because before you can start working on those harder areas, because you need to get your mind and your brain and your body ready mentally and physically and emotionally to do those harder areas.
So it's definitely been a lesson for me, an ongoing lesson, and I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. So you said something also very interesting last Friday that I want to chat about. You were talking about flitting, and I thought that's so interesting. What do you mean with flitting?
Just active and running around the house and thinking I'm going to start something, and then finding something else and going to another room. Just never getting any one thing accomplished. And I'm not one to sit, and I love to read, but I won't sit if I'm off during the day. I don't normally sit around and do that. I mean, there's a few days here and there that I'll say, I deserve this, I should do it. But most of the time I'm thinking, I got to get things done. I have to get things done. And I would just never get one thing accomplished. Even if it was running the sweeper, sometimes I would run the sweeper and then find things that need to be put away. So I'd quit running the sweeper, go put that away. Then that led to something else, and just never one thing got done. I'm trying to change that. And it did change with getting focused on some things was very helpful for me.
Yeah,
With the Declutter Hub, that's how I, got focused on specific tasks and stayed through it.
yeah.
So
I hear that a lot. And that's why every course in Arabic has a module that talks about preparation, because a lot of people start a decluttering process or think I'm going to tackle something, but then they kind of start without a beginning and without an end, and they kind of go in between, and then they get sidetracked with something else. They think, oh, they're like for example, they're in their bedroom and go, okay, I'm going to sort out my clothes today. Then they find plates and cups that need to go to the kitchen. Oh, they're just taking 3 pairs of things of clothes out. Oh, let me put those away to the kitchen. They're going to go to the kitchen. They walk off, go to the kitchen, think, oh, I forgot to put the bins out this morning. Go put the bins out. Something else, they then run into their neighbor to say hello. Then they come back and they're like, oh, I didn't take the milk in this morning. Back into the kitchen. And then before you know it, there's an hour gone. And they're like, oh gosh, I was working in my bedroom.
mm-hmm.
Does
That's
that sound
exactly
familiar?
what happens. I'll be doing, and I'll feel busy. I'll feel busy all day long. And it'll be 3 o'clock all of a sudden. I look at the clock and I'm like, what have I done? I've done nothing. I feel like I've done nothing because that's all I've done all day is chase my tail and never accomplish anything. And that's very frustrating.
Yeah.
To feel like I was busy all day and not have anything to show for it. I don't like that feeling.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because you think to yourself, I'm working the other days. This is my day to actually get stuff done. Now
mhm.
it's 3 o'clock. I nearly have to think about what's for dinner in 2 hours. So now I'm not going to start anything properly anymore, because before you know it, it's going to be 5 o'clock. And then I've got everybody coming home wanting to get something to eat.
That's
Yeah,
exactly it.
yeah, yeah. So you started after Christmas, you started listening. I think that's where it all started, didn't it? You started listening to our podcast. then what happened? Were you like, oh, these ladies talk sense, or what kind of happened that you thought I need to investigate some more, do something with this?
It was January or right at the end of Christmas, that time frame, and I was looking to, I listen to podcasts often, and I was searching for actually an organizational podcast, sort of decluttering podcast. And I listened to a couple that didn't really resonate with me. And then I stumbled across you guys on Spotify and started listening, and went then to your Facebook group and joined the Facebook group and started just checking it out. And you resonated with me. Something clicked, and I decided to do cans in my kitchen and cookbooks. I don't know, I don't know why I even started there, except it was just a cupboard that really needed to be done. And I thought, I'm going to pick one thing and I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I took pictures of before and after, but at that time I wasn't as confident. I didn't know the group that well, so I didn't post. But I had them in my phone, and I thought I'll post these sometime if I feel like I can. As I went on, I think I just got inspired to do other places, and I never went back until very recently and posted that. But I got rid of a ton of cookbooks. I still kept a fair amount, but I got rid of those. I got rid of old expired food. I have an old cabinet, so it recesses and ends, and it's a built-in in my kitchen. I bought Lazy Susans. I got really organized in that cupboard, and it just felt really, really good. And I thought, I've got so many places I can do these kinds of things that I wanted to just keep going. And then you did the 40-day challenge. That started, and I kind of jumped onto that, and I thought, well, I can do this. I'm going to get rid of things. And I think about that time I started posting some things. I did, a kitchen drawer that had tons of things in it. And, my husband even said, oh, this drawer is light. I can find things in here, and it's not a problem. I don't feel stressed when I go to put my utensils away. I used to dread opening that drawer because half the time it wouldn't open because it was so jammed full. And now I just pull it open and put things away. It's amazing,
Yeah.
And I just did a lot of other drawers and things like that. And then I did the boot camp. I decided to pay to do the 8-week boot camp, and that was pretty life-changing for me, actually. So
Yes, you had a massive success with the boot camp, haven't you? It really, you just went for it. So
I like the accountability.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I do better with an accountability, and I do better with a plan, so I was happy to have you all tell me what to do.
Yeah.
It helped me. That just helped a lot. When there was a plan to follow and you guys were telling me how to do it, I was able to do it.
Yeah. Because besides the boot camp, you get every week, you got new lessons with this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. This is how you declutter. This is how you organize. This is where you look at storage. We told you all of that in the boot camp. But besides that, we did weekly live Q&As, didn't we? Where you can ask your questions, and you were part of a forum where you can post photos, and that accountability that you were talking about. And that worked really well for you, didn't it?
Yes. Because on the Facebook group, I would only really post my before and afters when I had completed something, so I did something done and I'd be happy with it. And I did take before and afters for everything that I had, pictures pretty much. And I would then show it after I was successful. But when I was in the 8-week boot camp, and it was the, more private, not everybody on Facebook seeing it, I got to the point where I felt confident enough to post befores and say, this is it. I'm going to change this. And, that was pretty neat too, because I wasn't willing to do that before, to show how bad something was. And then, I was very happy to show the afters when it got done, but I was able to show the befores and, then show the progress after. And I wasn't willing to do that on the Facebook group, just the support and everything in the boot camp.
That's exactly the reason why we have our own internal forum for both the bootcamp and the membership, because it gives you just a bit more privacy in sharing your progress, and everybody else in the bootcamp and in the membership knows exactly how it feels to see halfway photos or beginning before photos, because and that it takes time and it takes effort and it takes energy to tackle areas. So nobody expects a complete after immediately. And it's just it's very motivating, and it helps you to set goals and go, you know what, I'm going to post this today. This is my project for this weekend. And you think, oh my gosh, I posted it in the forum. Now I have to do it.
Yes, it's the accountability.
Yeah.
And then I'm willing to, take the time and do it. And, I'd also say that, it is time consuming to do. And I find it exhausting at times because it's all those decisions and your brain has to work that whole time. And even if it's a kitchen drawer where you're like, you've got 40 spatulas or something, maybe not 40, but I had a lot. It's like, well, which ones do I like? Which ones do I use? What am I going to do with these things? And I do have a camper. My son has a camper. So, I kept things so I could switch out and be able to put the more useful things there. And then I'll donate everything else. There's still some limbo there. But yeah, it's at the end, a couple hours and I'm like, oh, I need a nap.
Yeah. Decluttering is very tiring. And that's why Leslie and I always say, pick a time of day when you're at your best. If you're not a morning person, wait till a bit later in the day to do some decluttering. If you're more of an evening person, maybe do it in the evening. You need to be in your best, because the decisions that you're making, your brain has to go in full power. That's why it's so important to have some food in you and to have had a cup of tea before, so your sustenance is up. Mm-hmm. To be able, because your brain has got to work. It's not only the physical stuff of putting things either back in that you're going to keep or in a bag that needs to go to a donation center or whatever. It's all those decisions. That is the part that takes a lot of energy.
Yes, it really does.
So if you think about the bootcamp, what do you think you had you did all of them really well, but what were the ones that really kind of hit the spot? Where do you think, oh my gosh, I did so well on that?
Definitely my final room, my room of doom, which I know you were going to ask me about. That was a big one. I'd say my biggest. I'm kind of between the 40-day challenge and that, it's like it's all all in here. But bathroom cabinets, that was a big one. I actually pulled one of my containers out of there this morning and was like, I'm using some things and I have more room in this one. And at first I was like, what else can I put in here? But the idea is that I had so much stuff and I want to be able to use the things that I have and not go to the store. And just, by doing that and pulling it out, I can see, how many of these do I have? I don't need to get any more of those. And that's a big one. But both of my bathroom cupboards, I'm very pleased with. I know what's in there. It's organized. It's not all jammed full of stuff. And that was a good one. And the fact that you guys told me not to start with my big room, my room of doom. And I trusted that. I said, it makes sense what you're saying, to go to other places first. And so I did. And when we did kitchen cabinets, I the other day, I did my glassware, cups and glasses. And I actually have space in there, which at first kind of freaked me out, but it's not a problem to put things away. And it's okay if things get shifted around into that space because I have the space. And my room was the big thing, but all of it, I find daily, when I look in a cabinet, I'm like, oh, I can see that. Or, oh, I don't have that. I need more of that. And it's just not really happening yet because I had so much stuff. So. But still using up stuff I'm finding or I found.
Not being afraid of having space in your cupboards. And when you open a cupboard, you don't have to be afraid of something falling out because it's so jam-packed that you're like, I wonder what's going to come out this time. And now being able to open it without giving it a second thought, because you know that everything is in there you need. It's not so packed that you have to almost work hard every time to get something out or to put something back in. And that's, I think, also so helpful when you just do your daily, unloading your dishwasher. It's everything gets
Everything.
easier when you have less stuff. That sounds
Hmm.
crazy, doesn't it?
No, it feels so much better. I can say, I'm out of soap. Oh, let me go to my soap bin and there's soap in there.
Yeah.
And I don't have to root for it or wonder if it's in the other place that I would keep soap sometimes. It's all in the same place in a basket and I can see what I have. And it's just, I don't know. I just take a breath sometimes and I'll look in and I'm like, oh, it just makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I mean, I say that all the time. I'm just so happy I'm a professional organizer. I love my job.
It feels
Be
good.
happy.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It feels good, doesn't it? It feels
yes.
so good. And it's not like you've like decluttered like 40 carloads of stuff, but because everything is now starting to find its place and things are moving in the right place, you know where it is. And that's exactly what you're saying. I know now where my soap is. So if I'm going to look for it, I only have to look in one place. I know it's there. So I know if I still have enough. And you are really using up all the items as well that you had in surplus.
Yes. And that feels really good because I don't want other things to expire food wise. I don't want things to keep expiring that I have to throw away that I spend money on. And it has helped the way the way I shop. I'm not letting myself buy those special little, jars of this and jars of that because number one, I have a lot of it. And those are the kinds of things I don't use as much, because I'll keep them for something special and then they don't get used and then they expire and then I throw them away. So I'm not letting myself buy that kind of junky stuff just to have because I have so much. So
Yeah. It's that realization as well when you start to kind of declutter, the realization how much you have, isn't it? So tell us about your room of doom, because that's how it all started, didn't it? It was I think one of the first things you said, I need to clear out my room of doom. And what did Leslie and I say?
no, not yet.
And you probably were going, but wait a minute, this is why I'm here. I need to do my room of doom. And Leslie and I said, no, 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 no. You need to do other. So what's in there in your room of
Uh,
doom?
it is a catch-all room. It became a dumping ground. It was my pantry. It was my scrapbook stuff. Well, it still is, but it's way better. And I tend to have too many baskets, but I strive to I've gotten rid of some and I'm striving to use the ones that I have. Just everything and tons of memorabilia for scrapbooking. I have two big tubs with my kids, school and scout, just things. And I've been putting things in there where I find them, pictures. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff and it just got very overwhelming. The food, I would just bring, grocery bags in and set them on the floor because I didn't have any room on shelves. And it just really it got really bad, but it's not like that. And I'm making myself rules. If I buy it and I have to be able to put it on a shelf, I have to be able to find a spot for it somewhere. My new rule.
Yeah.
And so far I've done pretty well with it.
Because
And I
you,
have I had a table in there that my intention was to be able to scrapbook on or wrap presents or whatever. And I just couldn't even get to it, because everything would go in that room. If you just, or my mom, or somebody would give me something that I had no other place for it, it went in there. It just went in there because I could pull the curtain or shut it and no one had to look in there. And
yeah,
so it was kind of a room of doom, room of shame. I didn't want people going in there. I was like, oh yeah, I'll get that.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So you've done a lot of work on your room, haven't you?
yes, I spent a lot of time in there and it's the room that I'd say was a room that I would flit to before all the time. I'd say, and I tell everybody in the house, I'm going to go work in my room. Well, I would just get completely overwhelmed. It wasn't a matter of finding things, I would just go in there and I would literally I felt crushed. I didn't know where to start. I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't picture it. I couldn't deal with it. So I would leave and go do something else, flit somewhere else. But I have started that room so many times. I can't even tell you, but this time it worked. I had a better system.
Yeah.
And that was you all, said pick a part. So I did all the food first, which was, I got rid of a lot of expired things. I found containers. I organized, and it made a huge difference. Once I got those shelves done, it freed up space on the floor. I was able to move in the room, and it just kind of started the ball rolling. I was able to then work through it. So
yeah.
It was a big job.
Oh yes. And we've been following you closely, haven't we? You've been sharing your pictures in the group, in the boot camp, and we've been cheering you on and telling you to keep going, and you've had amazing success. And what I was wondering, because you have done a lot, so how is the rest of the family? Were they resistant to what was happening, or are they kind of slowly but surely getting on board a little bit? What's happening? Do you see change? Do they comment, "Wow, Mom, that looks really nice," or "Wow, great job"? Or how's the rest of the family getting on board?
Well, my boys like to make fun of me, so that's that's ongoing. But they see that the things in that room, if they have a specific, I made kind of a place for my one son who packs his lunches a lot, and he'll buy certain things that he wants, and I have a spot in there where his stuff is, and I've noticed his things dwindling, or him putting maybe a thing or two back in there. So he's using it, or he knows where, if I find it somewhere else, I'll put it in his spot, so to speak. And they're able to find things, and they'll go in the room and they know where things are. Even though the boys may not admit it, I think they like that, and my husband does too. He's pretty impressed with it. His stuff is a lot of big things outside, big clutter. He's very handy. He's a machinist by trade. He fixes a lot of things. So he sees value in all the metal, but he has made a lot. He's been working outside. He has a dump truck load to go to the scrap metal, which it's like tractors and big things. It's big stuff. And he's just really coming along out there. So I'm assuming that it's partly because I've been doing so much in the house that it's kind of rolled over. It's things he's talked about for a long time, but just hadn't done. And he actually said, he's like, "Well, I hate to pull all this stuff out and then have it sit here." I said, "But that's really how you have to do it, and because that's how I've been doing it, pulling everything out, putting it on a table, looking through it, figuring out what to get rid of, what's going back." And so I'm kind of thinking that maybe he's seen that and realized that might be the way you have to do it. So that's what he's doing. And it's working, because there's stuff everywhere. I said it'll get worse before it gets better. Still, So it's a little worse right now, but not so much, because there's spots that are clear. That's not going to stay that way. He's got enough stuff. It'll go back in, but at least he'll know what's there.
Yeah.
And it'll be the useful things, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's definitely a team effort, isn't it?
Yes.
It is definitely a team effort. But it's so nice to hear that some of your hard work is rubbing off on the other people, and that it's not going unnoticed, and they might not even realize it. But it's exactly what you're saying. They might not even say something about it, but they're looking at you and thinking, "My mom is ace. She's doing a great job here." You know what I mean? So you had a fantastic success with the boot camp, and you've now decided to become a member of the membership for a year.
Yes.
So some listeners might think, "But she's done the boot camp, so why is she now becoming a member?" So what made you decide to go, "You know what, I need to stick with it? What was the reason you think, you know what, I actually need to stay in this membership?
I just wanted to keep going with more of the support, and I like you guys, and then there's other people in the membership that, we all kind of, cheer each other on and share our stuff, so we know that we're not the only ones out there dealing with, that cupboard or this or that. And I have more to do, so I thought, why not? I wanted to keep going. I didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
And the system already helped me, and I just need to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think you realized how important space is for you, how important the order is working for you, how much success you've had. So you want to keep going. You've saved money without a shadow of a doubt. You're less wasteful. You're being more careful when you're shopping. So it's not only about the stuff. You're changing your whole perspective on things as well, aren't you?
absolutely. Yes. And it really this all hit at a good time, obviously, because I haven't been able to work because of, being on stay-at-home orders for a couple months. And this just all clicked. It all hit at the same time. But, I will be going back to work. But, so I still want to be able to follow along and fit my projects in where I can. But I feel like this has been great because I've gotten some of the big stuff done. But like I said, I still have a lot to do, and I just want to keep going with it. I like the support. I like the accountability. It's just helped. So I thought, why not?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we're so glad you have, because it's just been so wonderful to see you flourish in the boot camp, and now to make sure that you're in the membership and you can continue that journey. And I think it's also made you realize that decluttering is something that can't be done in 3 weeks. It does take time, and you're probably going to see at some point throughout your year, you're going to go back to areas, and all the lessons that you've learned, you're going to go through stuff again, because you're finding stuff in other parts of your house that now need to go to a certain area. And then you probably have to go through it again. It's never a one-stop process, is it? It's something that continuously needs a little bit of attention, and it gets a little bit easier every time you get around to it.
And even just finding things, I did a shoe declutter. I have way too many shoes, and I'm still finding, it's nice that I have room for what I have now. I still have way too many shoes, but I have tried some on that I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to wear these, and so I'm trying to weed those out. And it's just easier to say, I don't wear these. I said to a friend something about how many shoes I had, and she said, well, I never noticed that you have like any special or fancy shoes on. And I was like, well, they aren't necessarily. And those are the ones I don't wear. Those are the ones that stay in the closet. I just wear the same stuff all the time, but I have a lot in case I need them.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit easier to say, you know what, even if I spent money on those shoes, I don't wear them. They're not comfortable, or I don't like the way they look now. It's time to just let them go.
Well, gosh, that's so interesting, so good. Timna, last question for you then. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners? You think, you know what, this is the one thing, or maybe 2 things or 3 things, that I would love for them to hear this while listening to this podcast. This is kind of a final parting thought.
The big thing was, don't do the big thing. Don't do the big thing first. I wanted to do that room so desperately, and I just trusted, Ingrid and Leslie said, don't do that first. Follow these other things. Do these other things first. And it worked. I was able to practice. I think one of you, maybe Leslie, both of you said, it's like a muscle. You have to build it up. You have to realize that you, number one, are in control, I think, and that you can get rid of things. And it's easier to practice getting rid of things in your junk drawer and your shoes and your bathroom cabinet than work your way up to the hard things that, where there's lots and lots of stuff. So that was really a big one. And I liked following a plan. I liked having a goal for, okay, we did the bathroom, we did the kitchen. Instead of flitting around,
Yeah.
set your mind to that one thing and start on it and try to finish that small thing, that drawer. And it really just makes the ball keep rolling. You're like, what's the next drawer I can do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes a big difference.
Well, I love it. And thank you, Timna, so much for sharing that with us and for your inspiration and for your honesty. And listeners, I hope you've enjoyed Timna's decluttering journey and her story of how she ended up in the Declutter Hub and what it's brought to her, and that just having too much stuff is very possible. It's not one particular thing. It's just a bit of everything that's too much. And where do you then start? And Timna has found her way, and we're delighted that she's in the Declutter Hub and she's going to stay in our members area. So we hope her journey has inspired you. So thanks so much for taking the time to listen today. Thank you, Timna, for being a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for asking me.
Absolute pleasure is all mine, honestly. So if you are listening and think, you know what, I want to get some more advice and I want tips, follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as at Declutter Hub. And as Timna said, we've got a lovely, supportive Facebook group where we chat all things clutter. You can find us on Facebook on the Declutter Hub community. And indeed, we've got the bootcamp, we've got the members area. So if you'd like to know more about those, have a look on declutterhub.com and then click on the shop, or check us out on members.declutterhub.com for more information. If you don't want to miss the next weekly episode, please subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher, and it will pop into your notifications each Friday. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.